Hey everyone, you're watching the Esperanza 243. As usual, I'm feeling really giddy. Really giddy. It's because of my Romeo. I seriously love him. I really wish we didn't live so far apart. But I am determined. I am certain that he and I will meet. I desperately have to. I cannot stand the distance between us much longer. I do intend on visiting him during spring break next semester. Sorry guys. Excuse me. I did not expect that to happen during a video. Alright, I am determined to visit him during spring break next semester. Just need to figure out who my confidant shall be going down there. Alright, part of your world, book reading. Some nice clean water. So, let's get this going. That was kind of freaky, wasn't it? Alright. Let's get this book reading started. Shoot, I forgot her name. Miss Tapeton saw Garnett sleeping on the floor. "Oh no," she whispered. Excuse me. She rushed toward her. "We have to wake her up," she told Mr. Ewald. He gave her an odd look. "I know that. Why are you concerned about it? You went the last few times." "Yes, but we hardly have fears. The only fear we have is an invasion from sharks or squids. If she has any fears other than those, the harm to her would be real. So real that she might not wake up. We have to wake her," she explained. Mr. Ewald gasped. She went back to her cooking area and started making a special concoction. A young mermaid was swimming to the surface. As she reached the surface, she jumped, twirled in the air, and landed back in the ocean waters. "Ah," she sighed. "There's nothing like swimming free out in the open." She looked towards the moon. It was bright and shining like a guiding light. Then she saw a huge creature. It was very tall and made of wood. There were 3 big sticks with white fabric attached to each stick. She knew what it was from her previous adventures outside of Aquatica. "A ship," she whispered. She swam toward it, close enough to see the humans. Suddenly, she heard panting from below her. She looked down. A crab was swimming up to her. She giggled. "What are you doing here, Quentin?" "That's what I should be asking you," he said. His voice was deep and raspy. "Do you realize what you're doing?" She gave him a look. "If your uncle finds out you go to the surface like that, he'll have your—" He saw the ship and gave the young mermaid an odd look. "We shouldn't be here. He'll have your fin if you don't come back. You're coming with me, young woman." Damn, I could go deep. "He's not going to find out," she told him. She gave him a soft look. He gave her a grumpy look. "Oh, that is it. No more. No more am I falling for that kind smile and soft eyes," he said, looking away. "I am going to tell your uncle." He started going back down to Aquatica. The young mermaid raced to him. "Quentin, no, please, you can't tell him." Suddenly, the waters started to churn. She noticed the change immediately. She swam back up to the surface and looked around. The sky was slowly darkening. She became worried as the crab went back down to the young mermaid's home. "I wonder what he's upset about," she said. She stayed there for a little longer to look at the humans. A few minutes later, the churning became worse, creating big waves. The entire sky was covered with dark clouds. It was thundering. Lightning struck. "Oh no, Quentin told him," she whispered. Lightning struck again and hit part of the ship. The hole it created was so big that water was coming in. That water was rushing in. The ship was sinking. She gasped. She swam closer. She wanted to help those who were about to drown, but something was telling her not to do so. For one split moment, there was no thunder. "Karina!" someone called out. She could barely hear him. The young mermaid turned and saw her uncle. Her eyes widened. "Uncle, please stop this!" she yelled. He couldn't hear her. He didn't look furious, but he was very disappointed. He held out his right hand toward her. The palm was touching the ocean waters. Then he spoke foreign words. Lightning and thunder drowned out his voice. Something came out of his palm. It was a pretty shade of blue, and it was swirling and coming really fast toward Karina. When the pretty color touched her, a wave crashed into her. Right before the wave crashed into her, her tail turned into a pair of legs. She tried to gasp, but salt water came in her mouth. The taste of it made her gag. Her eyes widened. She kept her mouth shut, but soon her lungs were burning. She couldn't breathe. She looked around as she kicked. Her eyes widened again. She looked down and saw that she had legs. "I have to reach the surface," she thought to herself. She tried kicking upward. She moved a few inches. Karina's lungs were burning even more. She opened her mouth. Salt water came into her mouth again. She couldn't handle it anymore. Her little body couldn't take it. She gave up and let the ocean take over her, taking her wherever. Karina was going to die in a matter of minutes. Her uncle was watching what happened. After she gave up, he closed his eyes. He used his trident on his niece. Light came from the trident and touched her, forming a bubble around her. He turned and moved his trident toward Virginia Beach. Turned and moved his trident toward what is now Virginia Beach. He turned and moved his trident toward what is now Virginia Beach. Let her live, he disappeared. Let her live and forget what happened tonight. She disappeared. Her body appeared on the beach. Then the uncle aimed his trident at himself. He closed his eyes as light from the trident wrapped around him, and he too disappeared. Garnet opened her eyes. She blinked and looked around. She felt cold. She was even breathing heavy. She blinked again and looked around. Mr. Ewald was sitting on a big shell for a chair. Miss Tatum was next to her. She was singing a soothing song. She was holding something, almost like a cup. Garnet moved her arms and used them to sit up. "Hello there, Miss Garnet. Are you all right?" Miss Tatum asked. Mr. Ewald looked their direction and swam toward her. She looked around. She winced. Her head was hurting. "I have a big Oh. Her head was hurting. "I have a headache," she whispered. The mermaid swam back to her cooking area and grabbed the snacks she made. Then she swam back to her new friend and gave her the snack. "What is it?" Miss Tatum smiled softly. "It's clam and oyster. Try it. This will help regain your strength." It was quiet for a while as Garnet ate. "What did you dream?" Garnet looked at Mr. Ewald and then lowered her eyes. "It was about a mermaid going up to the surface before a storm brewed. A ship sank during the storm." Miss Tatum became confused, but the merman widened his eyes. "My mom had a nightmare like this when she was young, but only a part of it," she explained. "When my aunt told me about the nightmare, we thought it was part of a memory." She looked at Mr. Ewald again. "How much of it did you get to see?" "All of it. I saw the entire memory. The king used his trident to forget what happened that night. After what you've told me, I think he still remembers the pain of that night." She paused to think. "Because of that, I think that's how he's able to remember part of the storm. It was quiet for some time. "You know," Miss Tatum began to say, "after looking at you for a while, you look rather familiar. Your green eyes pop out with your brown hair." Garnet smiled. "Thanks," she said, a bit confused. The mermaid smiled faintly as she turned her head a bit, still looking at Garnet. "And if I look at you in a way, I can almost see some red in your hair." Garnet's eyes widened. "Red? Funny. I thought that when I was in the bathroom before entering the ocean this week." Miss Tatum had a curious look on her face. "You say your last name is O'Connell. Is that your mother's maiden name?" I'm gonna stop there. Got a lot done, but still have a lot more to go. Alright, time check. will see you guys tomorrow. I will work tonight on getting the lyric video up. So exciting. This will be my third, I think. And some of the tracks, I'll just tell you guys next book reading video. This is the Esperanza 243, signing off.